Hey guys, it's the Nerdy Movie Guy. So today we're going to talk about the latest Marvel series, Echo. So there's sort of a lot I want to dive into, and before I reviewed the series, I wanted to debate whether I wanted to review each episode individually or the series as a whole. And after watching all 5 episodes, I decided to make one video, and I'll explain to you guys why later on. And so one of the things I want to mention about the series before even starting the episode, just logging into Disney Plus to watch this, there's all these subcategories for, MCU and Timeline Order. There's origin stories. There's the one shots, and there's the category for Defenders with obviously Daredevil, Defenders, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage. And so one of the things I noticed is Echo is actually, the show as a whole is in the Defenders category. So I don't know what that means for the MCU. I don't know if she's going to be linked with the other characters. I don't know if the other characters will cameo in the next project she's in. There's a possibility there's a lot of rumors going on with Marvel that they're going to have space stuff and then street level stuff. So maybe the street level stuff, they're just going to name it Defenders, and they have Echo listed with the rest of them. It's also a possibility they can change the name, but this could be their street level category. So it will be interesting to see later on if maybe they add Hawkeye and or Moon Knight to this category. But we'll see what happens. So for now, she is in the Defenders category as far as Disney Plus is concerned. And so let's dive into the episode. One of the first things I noticed that unfortunately just became a very noticeable negative impact is Maya Lopez is deaf, so she uses ASL to communicate with other characters. And for, unfortunately, just not enough Americans know ASL. So I feel like a lot of the people that are going to watch the show, like me, will unfortunately just have to rely on the subtitles. Now, whether you watch TV regularly with subtitles or not, characters who use ASL in TV shows, they'll usually have automatic subtitles for that. But one thing I noticed, as far as the first episode is concerned, is in this episode, there is a lot of conversations that she's having with other characters, and the subtitles just don't appear. I had Disney Plus settings for captions. I used my TV settings for captions. And nothing seemed to work. I was getting half the conversations, and so for a viewer like me who relies on the captions to understand the dialogue and hence the story, it just became a negative impact to just sort of only get about half of it. Now, this did only happen with the first episode, so I don't know. Maybe you guys using a different TV, maybe you didn't have a captions issue, so just let me know in the comments. But I had that issue, and starting a new TV series with a character that started off as a side character in another show, it's hard to be invested when you can't really get most of the dialogue anyway. And so, like I said, it was about half. So, in this episode, I feel that as far as the direction is concerned, it just unfortunately felt scattered. Maya Lopez gets a lot of personal backstory with her family and her friends, and I think that was nice. It was great to see. But the thing is there are so many different elements to this episode that kind of felt like it was going in very different directions. So we get a lot of flashbacks with Kingpin, and we get a flashback where she fights Daredevil in this sort of unconfirmed time when she did fight him. And then we also see the first Choctaw, which is in, these people are in this cave with the circling glowing yellow lights that show up on their arm, which shows up on the arm in the present, and it's just a lot. It's overwhelming almost. There was a lot of different stories taking a lot of different directions. So unfortunately, it just sort of became hard to follow. Now, I think going back to, with the episode, one thing I want to mention is she did get a good origin story in the first episode. But the thing is, I felt like everything we needed to know about her, we got in the first episode. So I think the last thing I want to mention in the premiere is when she fights Daredevil, they show, I know the timelines can be confusing for Marvel. It's kind of confusing for me. But I know in 2018, when Infinity War came out, Endgame the first scene of Endgame took place 10 days later after the events of Infinity War. So essentially, the beginning of Endgame takes place in 2018. So their 5-year time jump would make it 2023. So there is a scene in Echo where it shows her and Kingpin sort of having this conversation, and it says 2021. So it subtly confirms that Wilson Fisk did not blip, and he was in fact doing his own thing in New York for an unspecified amount of time. She also fights Daredevil, and it doesn't say what year, so we don't know if she fought Daredevil before Thanos snapped or after. We just don't really know. It's just sort of this unspecified time. So I thought that could have been explained a little better in detail, so fans get sort of an idea of whether or not Daredevil did blip or whether he didn't. But anyways, Kingpin did not. That was explained in the episode very clear. So we'll see what happens with Daredevil. I think Daredevil Born Again will give us a lot of more information about the time gap between Daredevil Season 3 and Daredevil Born Again. I think we're naturally going to get a lot of explanations. So I think we just need to hang tight and wait. But it was nice to see him in Echo. The choreography was pretty cool, was neat to see. And it was just sort of a taste of Daredevil. There wasn't really much to it, much of the scene. He didn't affect the plot or the story. He was just sort of there. So it was a cameo. That's all it was a cameo. But it was cool to see. So as we move on from this premiere, with all the scattered stuff we have, we expect as we go through the rest of the episodes, everything's going to be explained pretty much in detail as we're expecting. But unfortunately for the rest of the episodes, I felt like the plot never felt like it took off. It felt like there was this constant slow progression, but there was never any payoff for the story build-up. So in the upcoming episodes, Echo's going after Kingpin's territories, sort of certain bases of his. Now at this point, she believes he is dead. And if you're watching this video, you'll have seen the spoiler warning. So at the end of the first episode, Kingpin is shown taking his breath, sort of waking up. Everything fans expected. He is alive. That's a big spoiler. It's what everyone expected, and that's that. So as we move on to the next couple episodes, we don't see a lot of him in episode 2 or 3, hardly at all. So it's more Maya Lopez and her personal story, and we see a lot of story with her friends and her family. But there's not much of a plot. It's just sort of, she goes after one of Fisk's places, some of Fisk's lackeys are just threatening her, and it just almost seemed to the point where all these people threatening her were regular guys with handguns. They don't seem to have any martial arts skill, they have no powers, they have no abilities. So essentially, Echo will very easily take each and every one of them down, and I think that's fine. The thing is, there was no stake to any of her fights. You never thought, wow, maybe this show will take a different direction and kill her. Maybe something else will happen to her that will affect her character for the rest of her existence in the MCU. But there's no stakes. Really, nothing happened. She just beat the guys over and over, and it's the same thing. It's a lackey who's saying, well, beware the Kingpin. And she thinks, yeah, he's dead. So there's really not much that happens in the second or third at all. There's a personal story, character development with her family and friends, but as far as the plot goes of her being connected to any characters, the future Kingpin, or the future of Echo, there's really not much that they give us in this series. So when we get to the 4th episode, Fisk finally reveals himself to her in the final scene of the 3rd episode. So she now knows he's alive. So a good amount of the 4th episode is interaction between the two of them. And of course, Fisk in his classic fashion tells her, oh, well, you took a shot. I'm so proud. That's so cool. So Fisk is just sort of playing it cool, where he's not really bothered by the fact that she shot him in the face one bit. So it's cool for Fisk's character. It's cool to see that side of him. But Echo really isn't having any of it. She's not buying into the come back home speech that Fisk is giving her. And that's how you can sum up the entirety of the episode 4 of Echo, is he's trying to pitch to her to come back. And at the end of the episode, she still doesn't. She goes her own way, and that's that. And it's what we expected. She's being portrayed as a hero, even though in Hawkeye she was portrayed as a vigilante who's not afraid to kill. So it's hard to call it a hero origin story. It's more of a vigilante origin story. There are likable parts of her character that you connect on a human level, but it's just sort of, it takes longer to be invested after they've already made her out to be this cold-blooded killer. So it was just sort of, the direction is taken a very different way. So that's why it took a little longer to be invested in her character. So you needed to see her personal story. It's just, some fans may wonder, is it too late or not? So regardless, first episode 1, we get a good origin story for her and her friends and family. Episode 2 and 3 is just her going after some of his territories. Episode 4 is mostly a conversation kind of episode, where everything is being pushed toward this finale, even though it's only 5 episodes. And so they have their interactions, and at the end of episode 4, she decides she's going to go after Fisk. She's not going to team up with him. She's not going back home, and that's that. Now, here's the thing. Most finales, even some of the lackluster TV shows, have had a decent finale. Hawkeye's finale was probably its best episode. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier's finale was probably its best episode. Ms. Marvel's season finale, I think, was probably its best episode. And just a lot of these lackluster TV shows felt like it should have just been an hour special, like Werewolf by Night. And they should have just had a 10-minute origin explanation and then the finale episode. The show didn't really have that, because episode 5 was just sort of, most of the episode was the same thing. After Fisk, a couple of people with handguns are going after her. She beats him up. That's about that. She has this interaction with Fisk toward the end of the finale. But the thing is the whole space thing kind of comes to fruition. So the first Choctaw had these yellow arm glowy powers. Now, I don't know much about Echo's origin in the comics. I don't know if this was straight out of the comics or made just for this series. Regardless, it passes through generations. So now Maya Lopez has it. She was able to give it to her mother, her best friend, and now everyone's got yellow glowy powers in the finale, and they're fighting Kingpin's men. But the funny thing is, even though Fisk is there, she fights Fisk for like a few seconds. It's mostly fighting Fisk's men. And there's a standoff where Fisk decides to pull a Darth Maul from Clone Wars, where he's just saying, kill me, and he's yelling at her to kill him. And I don't know why, guys. I think it's a complete strange turn of character development for him. I don't know why they had him do that. Anyway, he's yelling at her, kill me. She doesn't. And the thing is, there's a cutaway. So when she decides she's not going to kill him, the next time we see Kingpin, he's in the car driving away from where the finale took place. He just gets up and leaves. He has some men with him. They just leave. Echo just goes back to doing what she's been doing for the past 3 episodes now. So this whole build-up for their fight lasted like 10 seconds, and then nothing happened. So as far as where Echo and Fisk are, as far as their relation to each other and their importance in the MCU, it's basically the same where the premiere took place. Now, yes, she does know he's alive now, but I felt like they took 5 episodes to just say that. She could have found out in the next movie. So I think this episode, unfortunately, there was a lot of representation for people who are deaf, and there was a lot of neat characters, a lot of explanation to how their lives are and how they would communicate and things like that. So there was a lot of really neat parts in her personal story. But as far as a Marvel TV show, as far as her being connected to any other characters or her importance in the saga, I just don't think this show did her character any justice as far as all that's concerned. I don't know if she'll team up again, and I don't know with who. All I know is this was a 5-episode personal story, origin story, where nothing was resolved with Kingpin. And so I wouldn't say the series was a waste of Kingpin. I think he was definitely just sort of dull in the series. In Netflix series with the first season of Daredevil, he has these really intense conversations and he's threatening, and it's just, you're just left there with your hands shaking watching him. In this series, he sort of took on Maya Lopez as his own. So we just never see him really get angry. We don't see that side of him. And we don't see the classic threats because he just kind of sees Maya as one of his own. So we don't get a lot of that side of Kingpin hardly at all. So I'm hoping when Daredevil Born Again premieres, we get the Fisk back that we know and love, and we can see his sort of cold brutality again. Now, as far as the show's rating, I failed to understand why it was MA. It's bloody, sure, not a lot of blood, but it was kind of bloody. But there wasn't really anything else. There wasn't any beheadings. There wasn't any spine breaking. There wasn't anything that I see in a lot of other MA projects. So I don't know why the show was MA. I think they just wanted it to draw people in because they put Kingpin in it and they advertise as MA. Everyone knows it's MA. Disney Plus knows that every single advertisement for Echo, warning, MA, mature audience. Like, they want everyone to know, hey guys, look at us, we have an MA show now. I don't think this show deserved to be MA, it just felt like a PG-13 kind of show to me. So, I don't know. I know that there are rumors for multiple other projects to be rated R or MA. I think the animated TV show they're going to do, Marvel Zombies, will be MA. I heard Thunderbolts might be rated R, I don't know. We know Deadpool 3 will be rated R, and we know Daredevil Born Again will be rated MA. So hopefully this is a nice little comfort start for Disney. I don't think they took the full dive into MA. I think they dipped their toe in the water. So I hope that they can just keep going from here and give us the strong, cold, brutal, sort of gritty take on what the MA rating usually means. So I look forward to seeing Daredevil in Daredevil Born Again, because I love the character, and he had a great series. And I think he's sort of becoming a fan favorite all over again by putting him in, in Spider-Man, and then She-Hulk, and now Echo. And then he's getting essentially a Daredevil Season 4. I know they had a lot of fans thinking it would be a reboot, but since the Defenders shows are canon, this is essentially Season 4. Why they don't call it that, I don't know. It's called Daredevil Born Again, is what it is. The only thing that is sort of interesting, the last bit that we get in the series is in the final scene, Kingpin is on this private plane. I don't know if they're in the air or not, it doesn't really show it, but he's on his private jet, and he's looking at the news, and you see these sort of news anchors talking about who the next mayor for New York City is going to be. And they want someone, essentially, they're describing Kingpin. And I don't know why. It seems a little strange, but it was a bit on the nose. It was very force-fed. But regardless, Kingpin's watching the news, and the fans get the idea that he's going to run for mayor. So this would be cool. I think this would be a neat, small, off-screen side story if he is mayor by the time Daredevil Born Again happens. Or if not, if Daredevil Born Again is going to have a lot of flashbacks like Arrow did. Where Arrow, the first 5 seasons, you have flashbacks throughout the series. If Daredevil Born Again does that, to show this well more than 5-year time gap between season 3 and now, I think they have a chance to really explain a lot. So I think Kingpin could just be Daredevil in the start, or he could be mayor in the start of Daredevil Born Again. Or they could save that story for what I think he will eventually fight Spider-Man. I think Marvel's realizing that people want street-level stories more now. I think people are realizing that everyone loves Kingpin. I mean, the actor puts 120% into that role. And he's scary. Everything you want in a villain is him. So I think if he's going to be the street-level crossover big bad, I think he's an excellent choice of an actor. I think it's an excellent choice of a character. And I'd like to see Moon Knight and Hawkeye and Echo and Defenders and Spider-Man. I'd like to see them all fight him. I'd like to see how far will they go. How far will Kingpin's takeover of New York City go? There's rumors he bought Stark Tower. There's rumors he's going to have alien tech for, as far as weapons for his henchmen. There's just a lot involved with Fisk, and there's really not a wrong direction you could take. There's a lot of different paths. So regardless, I'm excited for Daredevil Born Again. Overall, for Echo, I think seeing her personal life was neat to see. I think it could have been special. I don't think it needed to be a 5-episode series. And I don't think Kingpin needed that much screen time, given that they didn't really give anything for him to work with. And there wasn't really anything for him to do. Regardless, I do want to see the characters in another project. I want to see them be given a second chance. So we're just going to have to wait and see what the next project we'll see these characters in. Marvel continues to make more and more projects, and I know people have been waiting a few years for some of these end credit scenes in the movies that took place after Endgame to actually happen. But I think a lot of the Daredevil and Kingpin related characters will get explanations and appearances in Daredevil Born Again. So for those of us that are waiting for the street level content in the MCU, I think Daredevil Born Again will be a great start. Echo was, like I said, they kind of dipped their toe in the water with the MA rating and the violence. So we'll see what happens, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me for this video. I think technically will be my longest, which is kind of strange. It's a strange feeling, but we're explaining the whole series, so we'll see what happens with the future of Echo and Daredevil and Kingpin. Thanks again for sticking with me. Keep it digging, everyone.